Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson Number 3. Know the difference between your job and your work. Rich Dad Before You Quit Your Job by Robert Kiyosaki. Chapter 3. Why work for free? Differences between job and work. Do you know the difference between your job and your work? Asked Rich Dad one day. Puzzled, I asked, aren't they the same thing? Isn't a job the same as work? Rich Dad shook his head and said, if you want to be successful in life, you need to know the difference. What's the big deal? Asked Mike as he and I shrugged our shoulders and waited for the lesson we knew was coming, whether we wanted the lesson or not. What does your dad always say to you about getting a job? Asked Rich Dad. Thinking for a moment, I replied, he says things like go to school and work hard so you can get a good job. Does he say, do your homework so you can get a good job? Yeah, I replied. He does say things like that. So what is the difference between your job and your work? Asked Rich Dad again. I don't know, I replied. It all sounds like work to me. Oh, I get what you're saying, said Mike. A job is something I get paid for. I do not get paid for work such as my homework. Work is what I do to prepare me for my job. Rich Dad nodded. That's it. That's the difference between your work and your job. You get paid for a job, but you do not get paid for doing your work. Looking at me, he asked, do you get paid for doing yard work at home, or does your mom get paid for doing her housework? No, I replied. Not in my family. I don't even get an allowance. Do you get paid to do your homework? Asked Rich Dad. Does your dad give you money to read books? No, I replied a little sarcastically. Are you saying that my homework is what prepares me for my job? That is what I am saying. Rich Dad smiled. When it comes to money, the more homework you do, the more money you earn on your job. People who do not do their homework make less money, regardless if they are an employee or an entrepreneur. Thinking for a long while, I finally said, so it is true that if I do not do my homework at school, I won't get a high-paying job? Yes, I would say that is true, said Rich Dad. At least, if you don't do your homework you will not become a medical doctor, accountant, or lawyer. If you are an employee, it's tough to get promoted and earn more money if you don't have a trained skill or a college degree. And if we want to be entrepreneurs, we need to do a different type of homework? I asked. Rich Dad nodded and said, and many entrepreneurs quit their job without doing their homework. That is why so many small businesses fail or struggle financially. So you're having us do our homework to become entrepreneurs. Exactly, Rich Dad said. And that is why I am not paying you. Working for me for free is doing your homework. Many employees do not understand working for free. They expect to get paid for anything they do. That is why they fail. They continue to think like employees. They want that steady paycheck. Lots of work but no jobs. In many poor parts of town, there is a lot of work to be done, but there are very few jobs, Rich Dad continued. Thinking for a moment, I finally repeated what he said. There is a lot of work but no jobs? To me it was puzzling and I needed to think more about what he said. Why is that? Asked his son Mike. Well, one reason is that we are trained in school to look for jobs. If there are no jobs, people are out of work, even if there is a lot of work to do. When a factory closes or moves overseas, it usually leaves behind a lot of unemployed employees. Rich Dad continued to explain, employees see no jobs so they do nothing. On the other hand, an entrepreneur sees a lot of opportunity. The entrepreneur knows that the jobs will come if the work is done. So they need to be retrained. They need to do their homework, I added. That's the work that needs to be done. That is some of the work, said Rich Dad. Look, the point I am making is that too many people confuse work and job. Too many people expect to get their job training for free. Even if a person has a job, too many employees expect their employers to provide them with training and pay them at the same time. They want the company to pay for their education? I asked. Being a teenager and not having worked in a big company, the idea of expecting to be paid for training was strange to me. Many people also expect the government to provide them with job training for free, added Rich Dad. And that is why you say they are poor people, said Mike. It's more than financial, it is a poor attitude toward the value of education, training, and preparing oneself to have a skill people will pay for. Rich Dad agreed. I've seen employees attend training classes keeping one eye on their watch. At quitting time, they jump up and leave the class even if the instructor has not finished the lesson. Or I've seen employees who are outside, smoking and gossiping, or drinking in the bar and watching sports on TV, or flirting with other workers, rather than attending the class the employer is paying them to attend. That is why so many people do not get ahead in life financially. Too many won't learn anything even if it is free or if they are paid to learn it. And this applies to both employees and entrepreneurs. Since I came from a family of government educators who believed in free education, I asked, would you explain a little further the relationship between work and jobs? Doctors worked for free. Sure, said Rich Dad. Medical doctors spend a lot of money and a lot of time learning to be doctors before they get paid as a medical doctor. That is one reason why they earn more money than most people. The doctors did their homework before they get paid, Mike added. Professional athletes worked for free. They certainly did, said Rich Dad. But also look at great athletes who earn a lot of money. I do not know of a single great athlete who got paid for practicing his or her sport. Most professional athletes started young, practiced longer and harder than the average athlete. Most professional athletes practiced for years, many paid for lessons, and they put in long hours, long before they got paid. They had to do their homework before they got their jobs as pros. That is why you don't pay us, I said softly. We work for you for free. Rich Dad smiled. Even the Beatles worked for free before they became world famous and rich. Like the medical doctor or professional, they paid their dues. They did their homework. They did not ask for a guaranteed record contract, a steady paycheck, and medical benefits before they began practicing. I've bought a lot of their records, said Mike. I've helped make them rich. They made themselves rich, said Rich Dad with a smile. Doing your homework applies to more than just money. It also applies to your health. Many people are unhealthy because they do not work out. They don't exercise, I said. So they have poor health. Notice the word poor? Asked Rich Dad. Poor financially and poor in health. People who are lazy and lack discipline are often the people with the worst health and the worst wealth. So we need to do our homework if we want to become entrepreneurs, I summarized. That is why you boys have been working for me for free for all these years. You've been doing your homework to become entrepreneurs. If I were training you to be employees, I would be paying you by the hour. So that is why my dad, a government school teacher, got so angry when you had me work for you for free, I added. Chuckling and nodding again, Rich Dad said, your father thinks like an employee. That is why he thinks I should pay you. He does not understand working for free. He does not understand that you are receiving a priceless education. It's just not the kind of education he values. The type of education an employee needs is different from the type of education an entrepreneur requires. That is why he thinks you're cheating us, I added. I know, smiled Rich Dad. Look, years from now, you'll be a lot richer because of what I am teaching you. What you are learning is much more valuable than a small paycheck. Before you quit your job. Before quitting your job, you will need to find out how many different jobs make up a business. Rich Dad said that a person is a highly successful employee, let's say in sales, does not mean he or she will be successful in business. The reason he said this was that selling is only one of many jobs required by a business. His other point was that a struggling business is a business where a job or several jobs are not being done at all or are not being done well. He said, an entrepreneur may be working hard but only working hard at one job at a time. That is why so many self-employed business owners struggle or eventually burn out from overwork. They may be working hard, but they may not be doing all the jobs a business requires. The basic jobs of a basic business. In the third of the Rich Dad series, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, Warner Books, 2000, the BI triangle is introduced. The B and I refer to the business owner and investor quadrants of the cash flow quadrant. The following is the BI triangle that Rich Dad shared with me. Rich Dad said to me, if you are going to be an entrepreneur or an investor, fully understanding the BI triangle is essential to your success. As a teenager, I did not really believe or appreciate Rich Dad's respect for the importance of the triangle. Today I do. A great new product. Many times individuals will say, I have an idea for a great new product. As you can tell from the BI triangle, the product is only the tip of the iceberg. The jobs. You can think of the different aspects of a business as job descriptions. To be successful, the business needs someone with the skills to fulfill each of those functions. Starting with the level product, you will see the list of jobs required to bring the product to market. In simple terms, the levels product, legal, systems, communications, and cash flow are technically all jobs required for a business to function successfully. If one or more of these jobs are not being done, or are being done poorly, the business will struggle and often will fail. When my poor dad's ice cream business began to fail, it was not because it was not selling a good ice cream product. In fact, it was a great ice cream product. In my opinion, the reason the business failed was that my dad was not a good sales or marketing person. He was a great communicator as a speaker, yet he failed to fill the job description known as communications. Taking my poor dad's ice cream lesson a little further, my dad did not realize that sales and marketing involved more than simply running advertising or being able to sell an extra scoop of ice cream to a customer. His problems began when he thought the brand of ice cream was all he needed for success. His problems began when he rented a cheap location in a remote shopping mall. His ice cream shop was located in an obscure corner of a SOSO shopping mall. That meant he did not have foot traffic or car traffic passing in front of his shop. No one knew where his ice cream shop was. He thought the brand of the ice cream was strong enough to pull customers in. As stated in Chapter 1, his business began failing before there even was a business. He almost made it. In retrospect, he did well when it came to choosing a good product. The legal work for the franchise was also done well. The system for making the ice cream was excellent. The franchisor made sure there was a good accounting package as part of the business, so the cash flow job description was covered. There just wasn't enough cash to count. So my dad did a good job in covering 4 out of 5 jobs. He almost made it. Where my dad did a poor job was at the communications level of the BI triangle. He did not fully understand the intricacies of sales and marketing. When sales did not happen, the whole business began to fail. Instead of cutting his losses and purchasing a better location immediately, my dad did what many people do when sales decline and cash becomes tight. He cut back on staff. He cut back on advertising. He went cheaper instead of spending more money. When he did spend money, he spent it on legal bills, blaming the franchisors for his problem. Few things are a bigger waste of money than a lawsuit. Yet that is what happens when people blame rather than learn. Instead of looking at his own actions and taking personal responsibility for the mistake, my dad insisted he was right. Eventually he went broke. There is a poem that describes people who are willing to die being right. It goes, "Here lies the body of Justin Gray. He died defending his right of way. He is right, his case is strong. But he's as dead as if he was wrong." Every time I see people taking their sweet time in a crosswalk, expecting all cars to stop as they cross a busy street, I think of this poem. When I meet people who need to be right, people who habitually blame other people when things go wrong, people who would rather argue than listen, people who know all the answers, and people who think they are the center of the universe, I think of this poem. I also repeat this poem to myself, whenever I become Justin Gray. The triangle of financial success. The BI triangle applies to more than just the B and I side of the cash flow quadrant. Looking at the quadrant below, you can see that there is a triangle in each of the quadrants. For example, if an employee is a receptionist for a business, his or her product is defined as a well-answered phone. That is the product of the job. In my opinion, the receptionist of a company has one of the most important jobs in the company. If the receptionist does his or her job well, the company actually runs smoother. If the receptionist delivers a bad product, for example, by being rude over the phone, then his or her value to the company goes down. The receptionist should be counseled, retrained, or terminated. I am sure we have all experienced a rude receptionist at one time or another. The receptionist also has legal rights. If the company violates those rights, the receptionist can take action. The receptionist is an essential part of the entire business system. At home, the receptionist may be the leader of a system known as a home and a family. If life at home is happy, then the chances are the receptionist does a better job at work. If the systems at home are breaking down, such as no heat, no water, leaky roof, problem family members, the failing systems at home may affect the systems at work. Since the receptionist is an integral link in the communication system of a business, if he or she has poor communication skills, once again the entire business system suffers. Retraining or removal is essential. If the receptionist has loving communications at home, this reflects in the receptionist's life. If communications at home are abusive, it can greatly affect the job performance of the receptionist. Managing cash flow at home is very important. If the receptionist spends too much money, this not only affects life at home but may also affect the receptionist's attitude at work. The number one reason for arguments in a marriage is money. Sadly, many divorces are caused by problems in the cash flow of the family. An entrepreneur's homework. 1. Product. 2. Legal. 3. Systems. 4. Communications. 5. Cash flow. If the entrepreneur is weak in covering just one of the 5 jobs, the business may fail or struggle financially, or fail to grow. That is why the lesson in Chapter 1 is, a successful business is created before there is a business. A simple checklist. A business is far more complex than this overly simplified list of 5 jobs. Nonetheless, this simple list has served well over the years. I often use these 5 jobs as a checklist. Whenever a business begins to struggle, this list of 5 jobs can help analyze and identify where the problem or problems may lie. I have an idea for a new product. Whenever someone says, I have an idea for a new product, this simple checklist can be used to bring some reality to what may be required to bring the product to market. In most instances, the want-to-be entrepreneurs give up on their idea because they are not willing to do their homework. They soon realize why a new product is just the tip of the iceberg, or in this case, the tip of the BI triangle. Why they give up. One reason why so many want-to-be entrepreneurs give up is that they start to realize they are only trained for one out of the 5 jobs. For example, a creative artist may only be formally trained at product design. An attorney may only be formally trained for the legal level of a business. An engineer may be formally trained for products or systems but not the other levels. A person with a sales and marketing degree may only be trained for the communications level. And an accountant may only be prepared for the cash flow level. When want-to-be entrepreneurs look at the 5 job levels, they often realize they have more homework to do before their hot new product makes them rich. Professional self-employed. Highly educated professional people often have a higher rate of success because their education often prepares them for more than one level. For example, consider an attorney's business in terms of the BI triangle. 1. Product. The attorney is the product. You hire attorneys for the services they have been trained to perform. 2. Legal. Attorneys are licensed, which protects them from non-licensed competitors. Generally, agreements are in place defining the rights and duties of the members of the law firm, and their relative compensations. In addition, most lawyers enter into engagement agreements, letters, to define their relationship with their clients. 3. Systems. Lawyers are trained to establish business systems for performing services, and for invoicing and collecting payment for those services. Systems for leveraging the expertise of more experienced attorneys are tried and true within the legal profession. For example, To provide for efficient and cost-effective legal research, less experienced, less expensive attorneys will do the initial research to find applicable case law on an issue, which is then provided to a more experienced attorney for analysis. Commercially available software packages are often used to implement billing and collection systems. For communications, attorneys understand that to be successful, they need to maintain a good reputation and a good relationship with their clients. Most law firms market through word of mouth, although some are now resorting to advertising. Most people have an understanding of what an attorney does, which means they need to communicate less or explain less. 5. Cash flow. People expect to pay for an attorney's services. However, this does not mean an attorney can ignore issues of cash flow. Very often services are not invoiced until the end of a month during which they are provided, and clients often delay paying attorney's fees. It is not uncommon for 90 or 120 days to pass from the time an invoice for services is sent out before receipt of payment. In the meantime, the attorney's payroll must be met and bills paid. Again, this is oversimplified. Yet it does explain why people such as attorneys, accountants, medical doctors, dentists, plumbers, electricians, truck drivers, cab drivers, and babysitters may have an easier time setting up a business. There is a market in need of their services and willing to pay for their services. For professionals such as schoolteachers and social workers, the road to becoming highly paid self-employed entrepreneurs may be a little tougher. It can be done, yet it is a sad reality that someone will be more likely to hire and pay money for the services of a self-employed attorney than a self-employed schoolteacher. One reason why highly educated people such as my poor dad, a schoolteacher, suffer as entrepreneurs is that their professional education does not prepare them for multiple levels of the BI triangle. Many people such as firemen, nurses, librarians, or secretaries are trained to perform essential services but not the services required by the 5 job levels of a business. Before they quit their job, I strongly recommend they do their homework. You do not have to be first to win. Many people think Thomas Edison was the first person to invent the electric light bulb and being first helped him found General Electric. The facts are he was not first. The records show that he was actually 23rd on the list of people who invented working light bulbs. So why does history recognize Edison as the inventor, and why did his company become the biggest in the world? The answer is found once again in the BI triangle, his life, and the 5 job levels of a business. 1. Edison was born in 1847. 2. From 12 to 15, he works on the railroad selling snacks and printing his own newspaper. 3. From 15 to 22, he works for the telegraph company. 4. In 1869, at age 22, he receives his first patent. 5. In 1876, he constructs his own laboratory in New Jersey. 6. In 1878, he invents tinfoil phonograph. 7. In 1879, he invents electric light. 8. In 1882, he installs complete electrical system in New York City. Raising money, communications. You may notice that instead of attending school, from the age of 12 to 15, Edison worked in sales. He would go up and down the train selling candies and a newspaper he printed. He was working on the communications job level. When I left the Marine Corps, in 1974, my rich dad said, "You must get a job in sales." Being able to sell is the basic skill of all entrepreneurs. In 1974, I went to work for the Xerox Corporation and suffered for 2 years because I was shy and I hated rejection. But by 1977 and 1978, I was consistently in the top 5 of all salespersons. Today, I meet many want-to-be entrepreneurs who have a great idea for a new product or new business. The problem for most of them is that they cannot sell, which means they cannot raise money. The inability to raise money may be reason number 1 why most want-to-be entrepreneurs give up and go back to their jobs. If you cannot sell, you cannot be an entrepreneur. Cash flow. If you cannot sell, you cannot be an entrepreneur. If you cannot sell, you cannot raise money. If the thought of sales terrifies you, get a job at a department store and begin there. Or get a job with a company like Xerox that requires that you go around to businesses and knock on doors. As your courage increases, you may want to try a network marketing or direct sales company that is willing to train you. An entrepreneur raises money in these ways. 1. From friends and family. 2. From banks and organizations that support entrepreneurs. 3. From customers. 4. From suppliers. 5. From investors. 6. From public markets. Michael Lecter has written a Rich Dad Advisor book entitled OPM, Other People's Money, Warner Books. It is a very important book for all entrepreneurs. It covers each of these various ways to raise the needed capital for your business. In other books I have read about Edison, they say his ability to sell allowed him to have a constant stream of venture capital flowing into his projects. They say he was ahead of his time in understanding and integrating the concepts of self-promotion. His ability to self-promote is one of the reasons he was given credit for having been the first to invent the electric light bulb, when he was in reality number 23. Typically the person who raises the money, or puts up the money to start the business, owns the lion's share of the business. So learn how to sell and keep learning. For me, who owns the company? Learning to sell was much like learning to drive race cars. It was my own fear that I had to overcome. I am saddened by the fear in the eyes of people who want to be entrepreneurs, but are afraid of selling. Secures patent, legal. In 1869, Thomas Edison receives his first patent at the age of 22. He was doing his job by legally protecting his asset. Later in this book, I will go into why this step is so important for any entrepreneur. Works for the telegraph company, system. By working for the telegraph company, Thomas Edison learned to understand the power of a system. That is why, when inventing his electric light bulb, he was also designing the electrical system that would power his light bulbs. If he had not worked for the telegraph company, he might not have known the importance of this system. Another word for system is network. That is why the richest people on earth control networks, such as television networks, radio networks, gasoline networks, network marketing networks, and distribution business networks. A big difference between a small business owner and a big business owner is the comprehension of the importance of a system or a network. Just looking at the Rich Dad Company, our success is largely due to network systems. For example, Warner Books distributes our books through their network system of booksellers. Our TV shows travel through the airwaves of television networks all over the world. Our investment seminars are joint ventures with large radio networks. Overly simple. As you can tell, this overly simplifies the importance of making sure all 5 jobs of the BI triangle are done. Once again, if one or more of the 5 jobs is not being done, the business suffers. If an entrepreneur designs a business and forgets one of the 5 jobs, the business suffers or even fails. The business succeeds or fails before there is a business. That is why it is important to do your homework, even if it means working for free. Before you quit your job. As this book goes on, we will further develop the BI triangle. Before you quit your job, it is important to look deeper into each job level of the BI triangle. This does not mean you have to be an expert at each level. This does mean as an entrepreneur, you do not have just one job, you have 5 jobs. So before quitting your job, spend a little time learning a little more about each level. Sharon's Insights. Lesson number 3, know the difference between your job and your work. Rich Dad said, work to learn, not to earn. With that advice he was telling Robert to do his homework, to learn the skills that would help him build a strong BI triangle around his business. He encouraged Robert to learn how to sell. What are your skills? Look at the 5 jobs of the BI triangle and rate yourself as to where you are strongest and where you are weakest. Product. Legal. Systems. Communications. Cash flow. What if you find that you are totally lacking in one or another of those skills? A savvy investor will recognize if one of these areas is lacking and will likely not invest with you, no matter how good a sales job you do on him or her. Does that mean that you are doomed to failure? Of course not. You bring someone that has the skills that you lack onto your team. That person can be an equity participant in, part owner of, your business, an employee, or an advisor. No one can be an expert in everything. In planning your business, you bring together a team that covers all 5 jobs to ensure a strong BI triangle. That is why team is part of the framework of the BI triangle at Rich Dad. Our partnership was great because we all brought different skills to the table. Robert, Kim, and I were all strong entrepreneurs, with skills in all 5 jobs. But it was the combination of our strengths that propelled the business forward. Product: The Cashflow Game was the original signature product with Rich Dad Poor Dad written as the brochure for the game. Robert and Kim had created the game, and Robert and I have written Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Rich Dad series of books. While these original 2 products remain our core products, we continue to produce additional multimedia products and services to supplement them. The Rich Dad Advisor series of books was created to share the advice that we received from our advisors with you so that you might benefit from them in building your own team. Legal: None of the Rich Dad company founders were attorneys, so we relied on our advisors to fill that function. Michael Lecter is an integral part of our team and protected our rights in the products through patents, copyrights, trademarks, and tight and strong agreements with our suppliers and partners as outlined in his Rich Dad Advisor book Protecting Your Number One Asset, Warner Books. In addition, Michael helped us develop the joint venture and international licensing strategies that we used and still follow today. Our growth has been through using licensing and strategic partnerships using other people's money and resources. This strategy is covered in Michael's Rich Dad Advisor book OPM, Other People's Money. Garrett Sutton is a corporate attorney and the author of Rich Dad Advisor books Own Your Own Corporation, Warner Books, and How to Buy and Sell a Business, Warner Books, which relate to the legal section of the BI triangle. It is imperative that you choose the right entity structure for your business. Garrett's books will help you understand your choices so you can better discuss your options with your own corporate attorney. Spending the time and money to set up your business and protecting your assets in the beginning is crucial. As Robert learned in his wallet business, you may not get a second chance. Trying to save money on these important steps at the beginning can end up costing you so much more later on. Systems: I had experience in designing and building the business systems needed to support the company. Having years of experience in book and game publishing, I knew how to create the manufacturing, ordering, inventory, sales fulfillment, customer service, and accounting systems to make the business operate smoothly and to position the company for growth. We also found strategic partners who already had the systems in place in certain markets to support us, so we didn't have to recreate those same systems. If one system fails to operate correctly, it can cause your entire business to implode. Communications: Robert is a brilliant communicator. He can take complex subjects, like accounting and investing, and make them easy to understand. He can talk to a group of 25,000 people, and each of them will leave feeling he or she has had a personal conversation with him. Robert and Kim had years of experience in creating and presenting investment seminars. Kim oversaw the public relations and promotions arm of the business, making sure we were in the public eye as much as possible. I oversaw communications with our partners and strategic alliance partners. All 3 of us are strong salespeople. To read more about sales, refer to Blair Singer's Rich Dad Advisor book Sales Dogs, Warner Books. Blair reviews the various types of salespeople and how each type can become more effective in sales. In addition, we recognize the importance of trademarks and brand recognition. Trademarks are the symbols that communicate to our customers that the Rich Dad products and services originate with us. Trademarks tie the company's reputation and the goodwill with its customers to its products and services. We relied on our advisors to develop and protect our trademarks. Today, the Rich Dad trademarks and trade dress are recognized as identifying Rich Dad products and services throughout the world. That did not happen by accident. Keeping in communication with your customers is very important. Through our website, www.rickadad.com, we provide free information, both a free and a subscription community, and information about our cashflow clubs, special promotions, and upcoming events. Cashflow: As an accountant by training and an entrepreneur in spirit, I managed the cash flow of the company. All 3 of us shared the philosophy that no money was to be spent until we knew where new revenues would come from to pay for the expense. It was this shared philosophy that made our partnership so strong. The 3 of us did not need money and took no salary for the first several years of the company, until the cash flow was strong enough to support it. The cash flow section of the BI triangle is extremely important because a business's cash flow is similar to a human body's need for oxygen for its bloodstream. A lack of sufficient cash flow is one of the most common reasons for business failures. How do I build a team? This is by far one of the most often asked questions I hear. The best way to build your team is to start by looking at the 5 jobs of the BI triangle. You don't need to make your team members partners with ownership in the business, but you need the skills on board to complete the BI triangle. How do I pay them? In the early stages of your business, you may need to be creative in how you bring your team together. You may agree to pay an advisor more than he or she asks for, if he or she agrees to wait to be paid until the sales can support the payment. You may add the talent through an advisory board instead of bringing the person on full-time. In some instances, you may need to bite the bullet and find the money now to pay for the appropriate guidance and legal protection. It is important when you find partners or strategic partners that you be open about the financial arrangements. Try to find partners who are not financially needy. Financial need has brought many wonderful partnerships to an abrupt and bitter end. Entrepreneurs and their teams. Rich Dad said, "Business and investing are team sports." It is so much fun to have the right team, the right mission, and the right people covering the 5 jobs of the BI triangle. When all of these roles are covered by the right people, your business will have a great chance of success. We are taught to be individual players in school. But in the world of business, it is all about having the right team and cooperating to propel the business forward. For more information on building a strong team, read Blair Singer's Rich Dad Advisor book, The ABCs of Building a Business Team That Wins, Warner Books. Using other people's money and resources to build your business. As I mentioned earlier, an entrepreneur is a master at using other people's money and other people's resources to build his or her business. There are a number of different types and sources of OPM. The concept of OPM includes more than the traditional mechanisms for funding a business, obtaining a loan, or selling equity interests to investors. It also includes non-traditional forms, such as in-kind contributions and cooperative ventures. By strategically choosing the appropriate types of OPM and strategically timing fundraising efforts, you can build your business but still minimize your loss of control. New management. As the Rich Dad Company has grown, so has our need to bring in new management. While Robert, Kim, and I as owners will always be ultimately responsible for the company, we recognize the need to bring in new leadership and management to oversee each of the areas of the BI triangle. As your company grows, so will your need for the right team and advisors. It is important to recognize when you need to step aside to provide for future growth of your business. Getting started. Go back to your personal assessment of your skills and how they relate to the BI triangle for your business. Do you have the team to cover the essential skills of each job of the BI triangle? If not, start looking for the rest of your team. If so, you are one step closer to building a successful business.